Good afternoon. In the previous session, we have seen a bit of an introduction of Unit 4, that is transport layer and its services. And in this session, we will be seeing what are the transport protocols, that is internet transport protocols, the important protocols which are used in the transport layer, UDP and TCP. And before seeing that, there is one topic with respect to this elements of transport protocol, which is the difference between reliable versus unreliable. So we will just see that first. So we have to see what is the reliability and unreliability means in the case of transport layer. So the transport layer service can be either reliable or unreliable. Reliable means basically whenever a message is being sent, another message won't be sent until we receive an acknowledgement for the earlier message. Unreliable means we have seen in the case of connection-less and connection-oriented of yesterday's class that the packets may not be numbered, they will be delayed or they will be lost, and also they may arrive out of sequence. So basically, if the application layer program, so whenever the data is being sent, application layer is the one who decides what data. Application layer is basically the one which needs to send the data, and it is passed on till the physical layer. So if the application layer programs needs reliability, we use a reliable transport layer protocol by implementing. So in the case of reliable, we implement the flow and error control techniques. Flow and error control techniques. Okay. So this means a slower and more complex service. So if you are implementing flow and error control, this means basically whatever protocol we are using, it will be slow and it will also be complex. On the other hand, if we are talking about this unreliable, the application program does not need reliability because it uses its own flow and control, own flow and error control, or it needs fast service, or so basically this will be fast service, or else the nature of the service does not demand flow and error control. So suppose if you are talking about real-time applications, they may not require flow and error control. May not require flow and error control. Then what we can do is we can use this unreliable protocol. So in the internet, there are three common different transport layer protocols. So in our syllabus, we have two, that is UDP and TCP. There is one more which has been introduced, which is SCTP. So UDP, if we are talking about UDP, let me just, UDP is basically connectionless. We have studied this concept of connectionless in the previous class. So UDP is connectionless and unreliable, and TCP is reliable and it is also connection oriented. Connection oriented. TCP along with SCTP, both of them are reliable and connection oriented. So these three can respond to the demands of the application layer programs. Now, one question which we think is, we have already seen flow control and error control in data link layer. So if you remember, the services or the functionality of data link layer also included this flow and error control. So why do we need this at the transport layer too? So basically, reliability at the data link layer is between two nodes. So if you remember our diagram, let's go back to the diagram. In the diagram, if you notice, this node to node is handled by the data link layer, right? So in between this node to node here, we need flow control and error control. So that is why in data link layer, the functionality of data link layer is flow and error control. While in process to process also, we need the reliability. That is, we need to implement reliability at the transport layer also. So because of this, we have the data, we have this flow control and error control functionality in the data link layer also and in the transport layer also. because the network layer in the internet is unreliable. So this host to host is unreliable. So we need reliability between node to node and process to process. So that is the reason flow and error control in TCP is implemented by the sliding window protocol. So this is the reason we have this flow and error control in TCP. Now let's see each of the protocol in detail, both UDP and TCP. Originally, when we, as I said, the original TCP/IP protocol has TCP/IP, that is a original transport layer had two protocols, which were TCP and UDP. But now we have another protocol, which is SCTP. So SCTP has been designed, which is a new protocol with the transport layer. So these are the positions of the protocols in the transport layers. We will have SCTP, then TCP and UDP. So data link layer and physical layer it is with respect to the LAN technology or WAN technology. Then we have network layer where we have seen these ARP, RARP, IP protocol, then IGMP and ICMP. Now with respect to TCP, that is transport layer, we will have these protocols, which we will see each of them in detail. We just have to know this position. Now next, user datagram protocol or UDP. This is basically a connectionless unreliable. So I've just given the difference between connectionless and connection oriented, and reliable and unreliable. So this is very important. UDP is a connectionless and unreliable transport protocol. It does not add anything to the services of the IP except to provide process to process communication. So whatever IP is doing, it does not provide any additional functionality. That is, it just makes sure that the communication which is happening is process to process instead of host to host communication. Also, it performs limited error checking. It may perform some kind of error checking, but it is very limited. Limited error checking is performed by UDP. If UDP is so powerless, so now we have seen it is connectionless, it is unreliable, it does not perform error checking to a great extent, then why are we still using UDP? The main reason, the advantages of UDP is basically it is a very simple protocol and it uses minimum overhead. That is, the header of UDP won't be very large. Okay. So if a process wants to send small message, so basically for small message, if the header is very large, then what will happen is it will take time. So for small messages, it does not care much about the reliability. So for small messages, no reliability needed. If no reliability is needed, it can use UDP. So for small messages, it prefers using UDP because no reliability is needed. Sending a small message by using UDP takes much less interaction between the sender and the receiver when compared to TCP or SCTP. So suppose if you're using TCP protocol, then it will have a very large overhead. Then the message takes time. So instead of that, for small messages where we do not need the concept of reliability, we can use this UDP. Now these are some of the well-known ports. So as we have seen with respect to transport layer, if we want to have process-to-process communication, we need something known as socket address. This we have seen in the earlier lecture, so please refer to it. Socket address is basically a combination of IP address plus port address. So here, these are some of the port addresses that we are seeing with respect to UDP. So these are the well-known port numbers used by UDP, and some port numbers can be used both by UDP and TCP. So first is echo. Echo is basically, it echoes a received datagram back to the sender. Then we have discard. It is on port number 9, discards any datagram that is received. Then port number 11 shows us all the active users, daytime, it returns the date and time. Port returns a code of the day. Similarly, we have these different protocols. RPC is remote procedure call, and TFTP, trivial file transfer protocol, SNMP, network management. So in between, in UDP, we have different protocols in these last 67 to 162. And As I said, these are the well-known port address. We also have something known as ephemeral port address, which we have seen in the earlier class. So these well-known port addresses are assigned to the different protocols which use UDP. Now, apart from that, we will see the UDP format, that is the user datagram protocol. So we will see the user datagram packet, UDP packets format. So these UDP packets are called as user datagram. The packet which is used in UDP is user datagram. They have a fixed size header of 8 bytes. So if you remember the IPv4 header, it was 32 bytes. So here, as you can see, this UDP header is only of 8 bytes, and these are the fields which we will have in the header. So what is the field? First we will have the source port number. Now source port number is 16 bits. 16 bits means 2 bytes. So each of these fields in the case of UDP header is 2 bytes each. Now first is the source port number. This is the port number used by the process running on the source host. So this will be with respect to the source host. It is 16 bits long, which means that the port number can range from, we have seen already that the port numbers are from 0 to 65,535. So this is only given over here. It will be a 16-bit number. If the source host is the client, that is, if a client is sending the request, the port number in most cases is ephemeral port number. So we have seen the two types of port numbers in the previous class. One is the ephemeral port number, and the other is the well-known port number. So suppose if this source is the client which is sending a request, then it will use this ephemeral port number, and it is chosen by the UDP software. So UDP itself will choose this ephemeral, that is, some random port number is chosen. And if the source is the server, the port number is usually the well-known port number. Okay. Now what about this destination port number? This is also the same, that is the port number used by the process running on the destination host. So this is the destination host. It is also 16 bits long. If the destination host in the server, and the port number in most cases, so if the destination is your server, so basically whenever we are talking about servers, they will have well-known port numbers in most cases, and whenever if the destination is client, then they will have a ephemeral port number. Now what is the total length? So length is a 16-bit field that defines the total length of the user datagram header plus data. So the total length, as you see, it should be 16 bits. It means it should be 65535, right? So it should be 65535 bytes only. So basically header, which will be of 8 bytes, plus how many, if we remove, it will be 65527. So the data should be only of 65527, and the header will be of 8 bytes. So as you can see, this is a very limited amount of data. Okay. So the total length needs to be much less, because the UDP user datagram is stored in the IP datagram. So UDP is again stored in IP, which will again have a length of 65535. So basically the total length of your UDP datagram should be much lesser than this also. So the length field in this UDP is not actually necessary, because we encapsulate this UDP in the IP datagram. So we have seen the IP header and it will have data. In that data field, we will have this UDP header plus data. So there is a field in the IP datagram that defines the total length. So we have seen already in IPv4 and IPv6 header, we have a field with the total length. So if there is another field in the IP datagram that defines the length of the header. So there is a total length field. I'm talking about IP header now. So in the IP header, we have the total length field and the header length field. So if we subtract the value of the second field from the first, we can get the length of UDP datagram that is encapsulated. So basically here it is given UDP length is equal to IP total length. So this is actually total length minus IP headers length. By using this, we can get the UDP length. However, the designers of, now why do we have this total length field? Because the designers of the UDP protocol felt that it was more efficient for the destination UDP to calculate the length of the information provided in the UDP user datagram rather than by using IP software. So that is why we are using this total length field in UDP also. Now what this is the checksum field. So we know checksum is used to detect errors. So as we have said that there is a limited error control strategy which is used in the UDP also. So this field detects the errors in the entire user datagram. Okay. Now with this, we will see what are the operations of UDP. So first and foremost, the UDP operation is providing connection-less services. Then we have flow and error control, encapsulation and decapsulation, and then finally we have queuing. So first and foremost, the connection-less services. So we have previously mentioned that UDP provides connection-less service. This means that each user datagram sent by UDP is independent. There is no relationship between the different user datagrams. So suppose if there is a sender and the receiver, and A is sending some packets, that is user datagram packets to B, then each will take its own route. It is not dependent on some connection. Okay, so there is no relationship between the different user datagrams, even if they are coming from the same source process and are going to the same destination program. The user datagrams are not numbered, so we have already seen this. They are not numbered. Numbering is not there. And also there is no connection establishment. This we have seen in the previous class. There is no connection establishment and no connection termination. Basically, whenever we are talking about connection oriented services, we will have some kind of connection is established, then we send some hello packets, then a connection is terminated after the entire sending process is done. But here there is no connection establishment and no connection termination. This means that each user datagram can take a different path. So suppose if this is the datagram packet 1, then UDP packet 2 can take this part, and this way each of them can take individual paths. One of the disadvantage of being connectionless is that the process that uses UDP cannot send a stream of data. So suppose if you are using audio or video, if you are sending audio or video, so if you notice, if your YouTube is playing some video, it needs to keep on sending the data continuously. But in the case of UDP, that is not possible. So instead, each request, so suppose your WhatsApp messages can be using UDP protocol because they are small enough to fit into one user datagram. So only the processes which are sending short messages should use UDP. Now, what about flow and error control in the case of UDP? So as I said, UDP is very unreliable. So there is no flow control. There is no flow control. Hence, we don't use any window mechanism. And the receiver may overflow. So because there is no flow control, we may have overflowing of receivers with incoming messages. But there is no error control mechanism also, but we have something known as checksum in the header. Now what it will do is basically whenever we have checksum, it will just check whatever the message, the bytes, the bits which are being sent are correct or not. With respect to error control, it won't know whether the sender does not know if the message has been lost or duplicated. So we have seen the functionality of error control in unit 2. So you will know that if the message is lost or duplicated, if with respect to acknowledgements, you will understand the scenarios. But since here there is no error control, we won't know all these things. The lack of flow control and error control means that the process using UDP should provide those mechanisms. So whatever process is using UDP should take care of this flow control and error control. Now to send a message from one process to another, the UDP protocol encapsulates its message in an IP datagram. So to send the message, it will put its own message in the, it will put the data plus header in the IP datagram, and again it is decapsulated in an IP datagram itself. Now what is this queuing? So basically this diagram depicts the concept of queuing. At the client side, when the process starts, so this is the daytime client, when a process starts, it requests a port number from the operating system. So this client process will request for the port number from an operating system. So some implementations, what they will do is they will create incoming queue and outgoing queue associated with each process. Some other implementations, they will only create an incoming queue with the process. Now, even if the process wants to communicate with multiple processes, it will obtain only one port number, and eventually one incoming queue is created and one outgoing queue is created. The queue is opened by the client and it is identified. So client side, it will be identified by this ephemeral port number, and the queues function as long as the process is running. So as long as the process is running, the queue will keep on functioning. When the process is terminated, the queues are destroyed. So the client process, what will it do? It will send messages. So here it will pass on a message to the server side by using some port number specified in the request. So UDP, what it will do? It will remove the message one by one, and after adding the UDP header, it delivers it to the next layer, which is the network layer, to the IP protocol. So an outgoing queue can overflow, and if this happens, so suppose if the messages are being sent and the queue is filled by a lot of messages, the operating system, what it will do is it will ask the client to wait for some time. Now when the message arrives for a client, UDP will check if it is incoming queue has been created for the port number. So for this port number, it will check whether there is an incoming queue, and after that it will check whether UDP sends the received user datagram to the end of the queue. And if there is no such queue, UDP will discard, UDP will destroy the packet which it has received, and it will send back port unreachable message to the server. And at the server side, the mechanism of creating queues is basically a server asks for incoming queue and outgoing queue using its well-known port. So in the server side, we are using well-known port when it starts running. So the queue will remain open as long as the server is running. And when a message arrives for a server, UDP checks. So when the message has arrived in the incoming queue, UDP checks for whether the queue has been created for the specified port number. If there is such queue, UDP sends the received user datagram to the end of the queue. If there is no queue over here, again it will discard. So the same thing will keep on happening until all the packets have been sent from the client to the server and the server to the client respectively. Now we have a few uses of UDP. So the first and foremost is UDP is suitable for a process that requires simple request and response communication. And it does not require flow and error control. So it does not require this simple request response communication. If it does not require flow control and error control, then we use UDP. And it is not usually used for a process such as file transfer protocol. So it is not used for FTP. FTP is basically file transfer protocol. In the case of file transfer protocol, what will happen is it will need to send bulk data. So if it needs to send bulk data, then this UDP is not used. Then secondly, UDP is suitable for process with internal flow and error control. So as I said, UDP does not have its own flow and error control. Internally, if flow control and error control is present, then the mechanism can use UDP. So for example, this TFTP, which is Trivial File Transfer Protocol, it has its own flow control and error control, then it can use UDP. Now thirdly, UDP is suitable for multicasting. So if you want to do multicasting, then UDP is suitable. and UDP is used for management processes. Now SNMP